My name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. In today's vlog, I'm going to read 3 hardcover books that I bought this year, and I am determined to finish them in 2022. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you probably know I don't often buy hardcovers, or I try not to, because soft covers are cheaper. I prefer the, reading feel of reading a paperback or a soft cover. But these books looked so good, I threw caution to the wind and was like, I'm gonna buy the hardcover. And my goal whenever I buy a hardcover book is to read it before the softcover book comes out. So I'm gonna try to read these, see if it was worth it to buy the hardcover. So the books I'm gonna read in this vlog are Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. This is about a group of friends who get involved in art theft. They are tasked with stealing 5 Chinese sculptures from 5 different museums. And if they do, they get millions of dollars. And it's not something where they're like blackmailed into it. They sort of willingly join their friend Will, who is a Harvard art history student. And this is sort of his dream. He wants to make an impact. Next, I would like to read The Lioness by Chris Bojalian. This is about a group of famous people on a safari and they get kidnapped. It has been compared to Agatha Christie and Ernest Hemingway, so I'm thinking it's tense. I'm thinking there's a mysterious element, and I'm thinking there is a lot about Africa and nature and like human versus nature, but also the like darkness of the human heart, I like stories about fame and actors and actresses, and this adds like another level to that. So they are famous people who've been kidnapped and they're now held captive in Africa. I think it also takes place so it's in the 1960s. And finally, I wanted to read it in spooky season, but I didn't get there, so I'm gonna read it in the Christmas season. That is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is a gothic horror tale. This woman moves into a house. I don't know if it's with her husband, or I don't know how she gets to this house, but she's in this house and scary things start happening. So she goes to a priest and they work together to figure out the ghost situation, the paranormal issues, and cleanse the house. I have heard nothing but good things about this, and I cannot wait to read it. So those are the 3 books I'm going to be reading in this vlog. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. First update, I've started reading Portrait of a Thief. I have this on audio from my library, so I am both reading it physically every now and then and listening to the audiobook. Mostly I listen to the audiobook when I'm at work, just because reading physically is going kind of slow. I forget how like these big hardcovers, how long they take. I am 116 pages in. It's probably a third of the way through. And we've had the setup where these, I believe it's 5 friends, we'll talk about the characters in a second, but these 5 friends are going to complete these art thefts in order to get money from, I think, the Chinese government or a Chinese business that is running its own museum. So let's talk about the characters. We have Will Chen, a Harvard art history student, and he is sort of the driving force behind this plot. He works at a museum, witnessed a theft, and then one of the thieves slipped him a card that said like contact this. I think it just had a phone number. So Will is the one who is getting them into this project. His older sister, I believe it's his older sister, Irene, is always going to support her brother. So she joins as well. She is like, I don't want to say a con woman, but she is very confident, very competent. She gets stuff done, and she wants to keep her brother out of trouble and make sure that none of them get caught. And then we have Irene's roommate at, I think, grad school, Lily, who is going to be their getaway driver. She does drag racing. I don't think we've learned much about her past. And there is Daniel. That is Will's best friend. They've been friends since childhood, and Daniel's father works for the FBI and specializes in Chinese art theft or Chinese art history. So we've already got some stakes established there, because if they are suspected or if they are caught, Daniel's father is probably going to be the one investigating, or he will be one of the people involved in the investigation. And then finally, we have Alex. She is a friend slash ex-girlfriend of Will. She is a hacker, a like IT developer. She is the tech person in the heist group. She dropped out of college to get a job at Google because her family needed the money. So this $10 million would really be important to her. They are all immigrants, or they're all children of immigrants. So they're living in America. And I'm 100 pages in, so it has talked a little bit about the pressures of being a child of immigration and being Chinese and having this home that is like so close in your heritage and yet so far. Especially Daniel actually grew up in Bangkok. His parents moved him to America when he was like 10. So you have a lot of different perspectives on living in America as a Chinese American, because Daniel moved here when he was 10. And then you have other characters who were born in America and are American. So very interesting. My heat just kicked on, so I'm going to shut it down there. But I am enjoying this. I will say it did take me about 50 pages to get into it. I really like that we get to see all of their perspectives. The point that I'm at, they're in Stockholm about to do their first heist. And I am so excited. I love a heist story. I hope that something goes wrong, but everything turns out right. And I hope that they do manage to get all 5 things done. I hope they get their $10 million. Okay, so I'm reading Portrait of a Thief right now. And did I mention that it feels very distant? We talked about the characters, but the point of view feels very far away. The emotions are very muted, which is fine. It's like an action heist kind of book. But I'm figuring out one of the things that is making this feel so far away and so distanced is each chapter starts with like the whole character's name, like Lily Wu, or Will Chen thought this, or Daniel Liang thought this. And I think that's really distancing, even though it's orienting us in whose point of view we're in. But like the chapter header says, Daniel. I don't need Daniel Liang was afraid of blah, blah, blah. So I think that writing style, that writing tick in particular, is doing some of the distancing, even though the chapter is supposed to be in close third point of view. So I have figured that out. I haven't figured out like what's not working for me. There's something about the relationships in this that feels, I don't want to say unearned, but unexplored, unexplained. And I'm wondering if part of that is because I listened to the audiobook for part of it, and right now I'm not listening to the audiobook, so things don't seem right. I don't know. Sometimes with audiobooks, because I'm not like fully engaged, my brain, a different part of my brain is working basically to understand the story. And I find that I care less about the characters in an audiobook. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. It feels a little true though. I am more likely to DNF an audiobook than I am a physical book because I don't know how to explain it. So far, I like it, but it's just not working for me, you know? Like, it's not that extra, like, are they gonna get away with it? Is this gonna happen? Like, I'm not being pulled through the story by excitement, intrigue, the characters. Like, I'm not being pulled through the story. I'm just taking it in, if that makes sense. There's no urgency. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling. We'll see if it gets better. I finished this book like a week ago, and I've just been trying to think about how to talk about it. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I liked it. Let me talk about the good things. The images, it has a lot to do with art and art history and Beijing. There are some very specific and gripping images, shattered glass, the sun over Beijing, that are actually kind of repeated throughout the story and come together to give some resonance and maybe even some emotional resonance now that I'm thinking about it. The characters were interesting. I think What I'm struggling with in discussing this book is that it very much deals with Chinese American identity and Chinese identity. So you have all these different Chinese American identities and how they affected these people and their relationship with China. And it's very interesting, but I can't really comment on that because I am not Chinese American. I don't have that experience. So it was very interesting to read. And so I find it hard to comment on some of the themes of this book. It's about home. It's about feeling at home, not just where you are, but in your skin as well. And I think what I'll do is I'll watch some other YouTube videos, find some reviews, and link those below for Chinese Americans talking about this book. I heard it was optioned for movie rights. I would love a movie of this because it was very image-based. And I think one of the things I also struggle with is that I didn't feel like there was a ton of emotional resonance. There was distance between me and the characters, even though we were technically in their point of view. I think some of that distance came specifically from the writing. I don't know if it was purposeful, and maybe it was. It was good, but I think I wanted more from it. I think I wanted something more, and I can't name what that something more is, and so I'm struggling. Tell you what, I did love the ending though, because about halfway through, I thought, oh, there's only two ways this can end. And then the author came out of nowhere with a third way that I was very pleasantly surprised by, but also made a lot of sense with the story. Overall, 4 stars, really enjoyed it. Interested to pick up more work by this author. And if this gets a Netflix movie, or, I think Netflix bought it, but if this gets a movie, I'm there with my popcorn. I'll link some other reviewers down below and see what the community has to say. I have started The Lioness by Chris Bojalian, and I don't know how to feel about it yet. I am 58 pages in. I think the audiobook says I'm 17%, so I have been listening to this on audio at work. And I think that's part of the problem. I love the reader. I think she's the same voice who did the Diviners series. Now, I've only listened to the first one, but I remember that being fantastic. Just top tier audiobook. I don't think the writing in this lends itself as well to audiobook format, or maybe I'm just feeling particular, not in the mood for audio. So I think I might listen to a little more on audio, but I think I'm going to continue this in physical format. We've been introduced to all of the characters, and this is actually told in multiple points of view, which I did not realize. So each chapter is a different character's point of view. Short version, this is about a bunch of famous people who go to Africa on a safari, and it is Katie Barstow's honeymoon, and she's paying for the whole thing. She's a big movie star, very talented, and already in the first 60 pages we've had discussions of her troubled childhood and the issues that her parents had that maybe they've passed on. Her brother is also on this safari, and we've had an interesting scene from his point of view, remembering their mother forcing them to go trick-or-treating on October 30th. She literally wakes them up, gets them out of bed at 9:30 at night, the night before Halloween, and makes them go trick-or-treating in their apartment building. Very strange and sad scene. I don't really know where this is going. In the first 60 pages, we're on the safari right off the bat, and in the first chapter, if not the first, definitely the second chapter. Hi, buddy. What you doing? We have a group of white people who are potentially Russian attacking the safari group. And that's all that's happened. There's a lot of flashbacks happening in between the action. A lot of this is to say, I'm not going to continue with the audiobook. I need to read this physically. But I have a couple other books that I need to read first, so I need to pick a new audiobook for work. That's really the struggle. I'll let you know more of what I think when I get a little further.
put off updating on The Lioness because I don't think I like it. I don't think I'm liking it. We've met all the characters now. We've gotten a point of view scene or a point of view chapter from each of them. I think that it's feeling very shallow. It's feeling very like it's not giving 1960s safari. And that's why I've put off updating, because I don't really know what to say about this. I am 100 pages in. We've got our main character, Katie. Well, I guess if you have that many point of view chapters. But Katie is the starlet. She's paid for this excursion. Her husband, it's her honeymoon. Her husband's there. Her brother is there, and her brother's there with his wife. And his wife is pregnant, of course, because what's a thriller without a pregnant woman? And I think one of my issues with that, especially, well, not especially, but just in general in thrillers and like horror, when they have like a pregnant woman, it makes it feel like the stakes are higher because she has an unborn child, like, but everyone else's lives also matter. Man, I don't know. I'm just having issues with this book. I didn't like the audiobook, and it's about to expire, so it's not even like I can listen to it and get it over with faster. I will say that this book is high quality. The paper in this is thick. Like, this is a well put together book. Like, there's a paper shortage. Why are they using the fanciest ass paper for this hardcover? What are you doing? So these people have been kidnapped, and we don't know why. We don't know what for. We don't know what. I feel like the author thinks they're drawing the tension out by not letting us know why the kidnappers are there, and like not letting anyone talk, and just like giving these flashbacks to give us more information on the characters. But actually, I'm just bored. I'm bored. Why do I care about any of these characters? Oh, Katie's a starlet who had like a hard childhood, and like, but most of it fell on her brother, but he's a therapist now. Like, I don't care. Give me something to root for. I don't have anything or anyone to root for. Oh, Katie's best friend, this other actress, isn't as famous as Katie and never will be, but she's so smart. Like, and what's she gonna do with it? Like, I'm just bored. And I'm mad that I'm bored because I bought this in hardcover. It sounded good, and I am not getting Agatha Christie. I am not getting Hemingway. I'm getting mediocrity. That felt really harsh, but like, seriously, where's the mystery? Where's the tension? There's a lot of comparisons to Hemingway in this, but like, it's not giving Hemingway. Another update on The Lioness by Chris Bojalian. I am on chapter 23, 226 pages in, so I've got about a third left. I do like it a little more now. I was having some issues earlier. Arguably, I still don't care that much about the characters, but the action is picking up, and we're learning more about maybe why this initial kidnapping has happened. We're learning a little bit more about the leaders of the group that kidnapped them. That intrigue has grown, even if my caring about the characters has not. And I do see why this has been compared to Agatha Christie in terms of people maybe being picked off. I do also see why it was compared to Hemingway, because it feels very reportage. Like, this is being reported to us, not a story being told to us. And I think that stems from some of my issues with not caring about the characters, because they're just being reported on. Like, this is what they saw, this is what they did, this is what they said. And I still don't have a great picture or a great idea of like what they want. I'm 70% into the book, and I don't know what these characters want by the end of it. I mean, I guess at this point now they want to go home, but I don't know what they want to go home to, why they even want to go home or go back to their lives. Like, what are they missing? What do they want? I don't know. I did go back to the audiobook because this was taking a really long time. The way it's written is very dense. Like, the paragraphs, you can see that the paragraphs are pretty long, and the way that this has been printed is like very condensed. I don't know. It's a weird book. It's very like glossy, fancy, smooth. Like this was an expensive edition to print, I can tell, because the paper quality is like really thick and nice, and the way that they have set this up, it's just like, this is a very expensive feeling hardcover. Anyway, distracted by this cover. I wish it were better. And especially as this is my first book by Chris Bohjalian, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to pick up another book by this author. Like, they always sound interesting, but if this is what I'm getting, then I don't know. Maybe someone like recommend me a different Chris Bohjalian. If you've read this, or if you've read a different one by him that you thought was good, like, let me know, because I'm liking this better than I initially did, but I'm still not loving it. I'm not engrossed. I wish I liked it more. I wanted to like it more. Let's talk about The Lioness by Chris Bohjalian. I finished this a few days ago, and I wanted to like it so much, right? It's about a safari that goes wrong. It's about Hollywood actors. It's set in the 60s. There's a lot like about Hemingway in here, and like compared to Hemingway, he had in like 64 when this takes place, he had just died in 61. There was a lot to like. There was a lot I could have liked, but it just felt so flat. The characters had very little depth. Some of the actions toward the end, so I was struggling with this book and reading it really slow. I listened to the audiobook, didn't care for the audiobook, was reading physically, I was taking too long, I went back to the audiobook. I was just all over the place with this. I will say probably around the 200 page mark, around the 200 page mark, it did start getting more interesting in terms of plot, as like characters are getting picked off. They're trying to rebel against the people that have kidnapped them. Like, things got more exciting. Like, it was easier to keep going. But at the same time, like, I didn't really have a lot of emotional reactions when characters didn't make it. Is that a spoiler? I didn't have emotional reactions to like anything, to any of the danger and to anything that really happened in here. You don't know what they want and what's their drive. After they get kidnapped, what they want is to make it out of the Serengeti alive, but that isn't something that will pull at your heartstrings, you know? Like, if they want to get home to their family, like, that's all they want. They want to tell their wife that they still love her, like, hug their parent, like, just give me something. But there was nothing. So I'll stop harping on it, but I feel like it was just shallow. If this was an action movie, I would be here for it. But I just wanted more. I wanted expectations to be subverted slightly. I wanted something that I didn't get. I think I'm gonna give this, I think I've already given it 3 stars. It's just middle of the road. It was okay, but it was very much plot forward, character second. As things unraveled toward the end, I did find it more interesting, but I still feel like the reasons for these people being kidnapped were very, not shallow, but very light. And okay, here's another thing that I think would have made this better. If this had been told straightforward, straight through, even switching points of view, because this has 5 different points of view. Each character gets their own point of view chapter, which I think was too much. Even though we were in their heads, I still didn't feel close enough to them. And plot-wise, I think this treated the reader as a little, like, dumb. There would be, what was the scene? there was a scene where like they dubbed themselves the Lions of Hollywood, and then one of the characters is like thinking back to this scene. Flash forward back, we're in the current moment, and they're like thinking about like, oh yeah, haha, we thought of ourselves as the Lions of Hollywood, and look at us now. And just a lot of things like that. There's this one scene where I think it's Carmen is like thinking about her husband in this conversation they had a week ago, and she like promised that no one would get shot or maimed, and they should go and it was fun. And then, you know, flash forward to we know what has happened to everyone. And like, if it had been told straightforward, like we get the front stuff in the front half about them preparing for the safari, being excited, talking about being the Lions of Hollywood. Carmen has that conversation with her husband. Like, we get this front stuff and we get to know the characters, and then you put them in danger, and then like we go on the safari and then they get kidnapped, and then the second half is like all the kidnapping and like staying in the moment with them. I think that would have been better for me. That would have worked better, because then you're drawing conclusions from the front of the book to the back of the book, and those conversations they had in the beginning foreshadow what's going to happen in the end. Whereas with this, it just felt like we'd be in the point of view chapter, they'd flash back to thinking about something, and then like it happens immediately after, which just felt too easy. It wasn't mentally challenging. I don't know. Man, why did I buy a hardcover? So we're kind of like 0 for 2 on should I have bought the hardcovers or not? Because I think I could have waited for Portrait of a Thief to come out in paperback, and I could have waited for this to come out in paperback. It's all up to the hacienda now. His breath stinks. Third book's the charm, am I right? I finally started The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I am 68 pages in, and I'm struggling with it a little bit, and I don't know why. Does one eye look bigger than the other? Am I crazy? Anyway, I don't know how I feel about it. I think I'm struggling with it a little bit in that my expectations are too high. You know, I've seen and heard a lot of people talking about how this is great. It's really horror, like it's the perfect gothic, it's got a good romance. So many people have loved this, and I'm only a little bit in, and I'm not loving it yet. I could get there, you know. I've got another 250 pages, you know, to go, so it could absolutely turn around. First impressions, characters are not as fleshed out as I would like. Our main character, Beatriz, is she has done what she needs to do to get out of a bad situation. Cool. Doña Juana is, it's low-key giving me Crimson Peak vibes, with the like brother-sister and the sister kind of sabotaging, but not in the like incesty way. No. We have had like 2 spooky things happen so far, so like things are really taken off, but I also wonder if maybe I'm just not in the mood for horror. I really want just like a YA, my YA fantasies are right there. I really want just a YA fantasy, just like a ridiculous, over-the-top, fun romp. We've had this setup, and we've had the inciting incident. We're kind of in the like fun and games portion, or the rules of the game portion, where the stuff is going to escalate until we have that midpoint shift. And if I were to rate this book right now, I would probably give it a 3. We will see if this gets better. Oh man, I am 175 pages into this, so I'm about halfway, and like one of the things I really am liking so far about this book is that there's no slow build up. Like with haunted house stories, it's usually like a couple creepy, spooky things, and then like maybe one bigger thing, and then like it doesn't escalate until toward the end of the book. No, this is like balls to the wall from the get-go, you know, like loud pounding on the doors as soon as she's alone in the house, like our main character is alone in the house, like shit is bananas. And I'm like halfway through and I just don't know where it's gonna go. Yeah, Vino. So I wasn't liking it at first, but now that the action has really picked up, I am much more into it. Spooky, scary stuff is happening. My roommate downstairs like closed the door really loudly, or like something slammed, maybe one of the cats knocked something over, and I jumped. So it's late, so I'm gonna stop reading this for now. I like the dual point of view. I think it does help deepen the story. The main male character, Andreas, definitely has some sort of storyline happening that influences like the social commentary of the book. And then our main character, Beatriz, is a kind of a badass. Like she is doing what she needs to do. Another thing I am really liking so far is that there's not the like slow build up, which means that there's no like question like, am I crazy? Is something weird happening? No. From, you know, like the second night, she was like, there is something in this house and I can feel it. And even though people are being like, there's nothing in the house and you need to leave it alone and nothing's wrong, she does not give up and she does not believe them. She doesn't doubt herself. She gets the help she needs, and that's badass. Something bad has happened, and now I think the action is going to really ramp up to that final climax. So I'm very excited. This might be the winner of the video. But also, did I need this in hardcover? I don't know. It's a Friday, so if I could finish this by Sunday, that would be fantastic. Because I don't want to put it down, but I'm really tired, so I have to. It is a fantastically warm, beautiful day at the end of February. Surprising. Me and the cats are chilling in the sunroom. I've got a little diva on my lap, and I am 200 pages into the Hacienda. I am liking it a lot more now. This book really took off and did not stop. The like villains are closing in. We've had a little bit of a reveal about Rodolfo, the husband, the owner of the Hacienda, the husband of our main character, Beatriz. I have an idea of where the book is going to go and how it's going to end, or at least I have an idea of what I would like to happen, but unclear if it will. I don't know. So I'm going to keep reading and find out. Okay, I am like 50 pages away from the end of this book. I'm gonna finish it tonight, but I had to stop and update you all because the action is kicking off. Something just happened that I literally went, oh my god, out loud. This book is so good, insane. I feel like my other updates were like lukewarm because this did take a while for me to get into, but now that the action took off and there was no slow build and it has just kept going. I expected it to like peter out, but there has been twist after twist and I'm living for it. Probably one of the best gothic haunted house stories I've read. Genuinely. I can't wait to see how this ends. I'll update you in the morning.
Good morning. Let's have some coffee and talk about the Hacienda. So I finished it. It's not technically the next morning. I finished this a few nights ago, maybe one night ago. I was worried at first when I started it because it seemed like it wasn't going to be as good as I wanted it to. You know, the beginning was a little slow. I wasn't into the characters yet. And then the scary stuff started happening like right away. There was no slow build, like, is someone watching me? Is there something moving? Like hearing, you know, footsteps downstairs or a door slam, and then nothing happens for a few nights. This book really took off and freaking ran. I am giving this 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I think the character's relationship was built really well, really slowly, and it really emphasized that you have to trust someone to like love them and be in a relationship with them. So the emphasis on the trust that they had in one another really helped make their relationship feel like real enough, even though they only knew each other a few days. The bringing of witchcraft into like the church, and I think this book explores a lot of interesting and a lot of not hard-hitting, but kind of hard-hitting topics in a very thoughtful manner. So witchcraft versus the church, and the like balancing act that people who are not full like Spanish blood had to do with titles. And basically, you know, racism exists in other places. It's not an American concept. So that was all very interesting to see in this historical setting. And the decision our main character made total sense. She got out of there when she could. It wasn't someone who thinks they're braver and nothing can hurt me and I'm gonna go in and stop this. It was, this house is gonna freaking kill me, deuces. And the ending was so good. I didn't expect what happened, but it fit perfectly into the story and the way our characters, I don't want to spoil anything. So the storyline ended and the romance ended and everything was fitting for the book and the setting. You know, it was a little ambiguous of an ending and a little bittersweet. And I think that is perfect. Absolutely wonderful. 5 stars to the Hacienda, the only 5-star of this vlog. So let's wrap this vlog up. I read 3 books. 2 of these were Barnes & Noble Discover picks for debut authors. And then this was not. Chris Bojalian has a lot of books. So 2 debuts and an old school book. The question whenever I read hardcovers, whenever I buy hardcovers is 1, am I gonna read it before the paperback comes out? And with all 3 of these, I did read it before the paperback came out. And then the other question is, did I need to buy it in hardcover? Should I have waited until the paperback came out? So let's talk about Portrait of a Thief first. This has a paperback release date of April 4th, I believe. So I did read it before it came out in paperback. Could I have waited until it came out in paperback? Yeah, I think I should have waited on this one, even though I love supporting debut authors. Once you get into the reviews, they are very mixed. And that makes sense to me because I gave it 4 stars, but I think it's actually like a 3.5 because kind of went in circles. I did like the ending. Some other people didn't. And even though I think the representation was good in here, and in terms of Asian Americans and specifically Chinese Americans and the different ways in which people can grow up, because the Chinese American experience is not the same across all places and years and times. I thought that was good and interesting, but other creators have taken issue with a few of the characters and they can speak more to that experience and what is authentic in this and what is not. So I'm gonna link, I think I found 2 or 3 creators who spoke really well about what they liked and didn't like about this book and what worked. I do think I'm interested in picking up another book by Grace Dealey. She has one announced, but I don't know the release date. Will I buy that in hardcover? Maybe, because now I have this one in hardcover. And then I read The Lioness by Chris Bojalian. This has a paperback release date of May 2nd, so I did read it before the paperback came out. Did I need to buy it in hardcover? Probably not. Bum, bum, bum. This didn't really work for me. I think I gave it 3 stars. The characters didn't seem to have a lot of depth. It felt like putting stock characters in a new setting, and he was really interested in the setting. I didn't love it. The only thing that I do love about this is how nice this bind up is. Like, the paper is thick and beautiful. The cover is like creamy smooth and folds well. This is a beautiful hardcover, but I really could have waited for this to come out in paperback, especially since I didn't care for it that much. Finally, The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This does not have a paperback release date yet, which surprises me, but I think it's doing really well in hardcover. So of course, if the hardcover is selling, they're gonna push out the paperback release. I did read it before the paperback release, and did I need to buy this in hardcover? And this is a resounding yes. This came out in October, November of last year, maybe September. I read it within a couple months of its release, which is really good for me. But if I had had to wait another year or more to read this, I think I would have really missed out on the amazing experience this book was and the conversations that people are having about it. So I'm very glad I picked this up in hardcover, glad I got to it. And I will be picking up her second book, The Vampires of El Norte, in hardcover, because I know that I like this author and it's worth it for me to get her books early and not wait for the paperback. So while I did not read all 3 of these before the end of 2022, I did read them all before their paperback came out. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, you could like this video, you could subscribe to me, but really, you can do whatever you want, and I'll see you next time.